Good evening. Some lawmakers criticize the government's new version of tobacco bill. They are worried about the impact of a smoking ban in casinos and other entertainment venues on the local economy. The government plans to impose a total tobacco ban in such places by 2013.
The revised tobacco bill suggests a 3-year probation for smoking ban be set in saunas, nightclubs, bars, casinos, and other entertainment venues. After that, smoking will be fully prohibited indoors. Most of the lawmakers worry that a full smoking ban will affect Macao's gaming and entertainment industry, and think there should be an exemption to smoking in such venues. The head of the standing committee, Chen Chak-mo, says Macao's situation is special as it relies too heavily on the gaming industry and tourism. He added that many gamblers are regular smokers, and this is the case around the world, not just in Macao alone. If other countries where gambling is permitted allow smoking in casinos, why can't Macao? This is what the lawmakers want to know. Chen Chak-mo says that gaming operators worry about the full implementation of the bill, and some gaming operators have already set a non-smoking area. The second standing committee and the government will continue to discuss exceptional situations and probation terms. Chen Chak-mo added that the committee will try to hold one more meeting before the Legislative Assembly term ends, though the committee will not be able to submit its review for further assessment still within this session.
The Public Works Bureau has launched Trial Blast in Kolawan. They're collecting statistics for the flattening project in the Siak Pai Wan public houses that is going to be held during mid-August.
The trial started this morning. The blast lifted large massive winds and sand, but were dismissed after 2 to 3 minutes. Some say they felt minor ground movements even though they were in the allocated media area 250 meters away from the blast site. But the noise caused was not loud and ranked in an acceptance level. During the blast, authorities used around 1,000 kilograms of dynamite and placed it in 8 different spots. Chen Xin-lang, the head of commander, explained that the whole blast has been successful and within their expectations. He says that the time consumed and the noise pollution are all under control and within the environmental protection standards. Meanwhile, Deputy Director of the Public Works Bureau, Shin Chung Lo Gam Hong, said that the techniques used in this flattening project can effectively control the stones and sand caused by the blast. He continued on to say that the project held in August will be approximately the same as today's trial. The construction will be held for 8 weeks. The Deputy Director explained that they will be holding these trials each week for statistic purposes to improve the future blast.
Macao former Governor Almeida Costa died yesterday afternoon in Lisbon, victim of a prolonged sickness. Almeida Costa governed Macao between June 1981 and May 1986. In 1975, he became Minister of Internal Administration, and a year later, Almeida Costa became Portugal's Prime Minister after Pinheiro de Azevedo had a heart attack. While in Macao, Almeida Costa oversaw launches of projects such as Nova Taipa and the Macao International Airport. Macao's public broadcasting network was also set up during Almeida Costa's term as the territory's governor. Broadcasting delegates from around the Asia-Pacific region are in Macao for a 3-day annual meeting, during which members will discuss and review activities held last year, as well as plan future activities. One of the key focuses for this year is likely to be the transition into the digital era.
This year's Asia-Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development General Conference and associated meetings has kicked off.
This is also a networking opportunity for them to know each other, to exchange their views, and to sometimes attend professional discussion sessions that will take place here. As you have noticed, this afternoon we had a professional discussion session on user-generated content, which gives an idea to broadcasters to see how they look at issues from their perspective and learn from each other.
People from China, people from other regions now has been placed in the Secretariat office. First of all, of course, to assist the Secretariat, but as well as, of course, learning, how broadcast technically speaking, productionally speaking, as well as content production speaking especially, really plays a very significant role. And that really enrich, again, the performance of the institution.
This is also an opportunity for members to also discuss and learn about challenges each region faces in broadcasting.
The challenges of any given organization in media are more or less the same in Asia. We have to challenge in going to digital, we have to be prepared in adjusting ourselves with the environment change in media industry, new media coming to picture, and many other things, which of course, again, such platforms would enable people to talk together and see what others are doing in their own countries.
More than 70 delegates from the Asia-Pacific region are in Macau for the 3-day event, where partners and affiliates will review the number of activities carried out last year and comment on future activities.
A scholar from mainland China says the development of a stronger local advertisement industry is important to foster the expansion of creative and cultural industries. In a forum held today, experts argued that the advertising industry should be more creative and feature Macau's unique features. Advertising and creativity go hand in hand. And as there has been much talk about further developing the local creative and cultural industries, advertising could be the cornerstone of this process. This was one of the main remarks made by Yuan Jun from the Communication University of China. In the opening speech of a forum on the development of the advertising industry, Yuan stressed that the local advertising industry should highlight the unique features of Macau's history and traditions. Another speaker, Thomas Mock from McCann Erickson Advertising, noted that without creativity, there can be no successful advertising industry. He said that in the past, this was one of the main flaws of the local industry. Thomas Mock also suggested the government to step up its efforts in nurturing local talents in this field. This could be done by setting up training programs for the youth and cheaper rentals for industry agents. Applications for the mainland China internship program started today. 500 local fresh graduates will have the opportunity to work as trainees in major enterprises in mainland China. When the scheme was announced last year, the government planned to sponsor 1,000 local graduates, but this number was cut in half. Under the program, the government will grant a monthly accommodation and living allowance of 5,000 patakas to each intern, up from what 4,500 announced previously. Their traffic and insurance expenses will also be borne by the government. The Chinese enterprises offering the internships includes banks, insurance, trading, construction and logistics companies, travel agencies and hotels. A group of residents wants the government to replace the current health voucher scheme with shopping once instead. They handed a petition letter this morning for the government to take this into consideration. The Workers' Self-Help Association defends that students who are abroad for too long and the elderly who are in homes outside Macau cannot benefit from the scheme. Also, some locals use the health vouchers to buy dried seafood at Chinese traditional drugstores. And as such, the group wants these to be replaced with shopping vouchers before August 1st. Macau Government Tourist Office has launched a new website providing information for Malay-speaking travelers planning to visit Macau. The new website assists Malaysian travel agents to access more information to promote Macau better as an attractive destination to potential travelers from Malaysia. A number of promotional events are also being planned, including participation at Malaysia Association of Tour and Travel Agents. Malaysia is Macau's fifth largest visitor-generating market. Last year alone, over 330,000 Malaysians visited the region. A Clean PC Day activity was held to notice public about the infected and banded together computers, which have been remotely controlled. experts say this is a serious problem both for corporations and the general public. Personal computer viruses are normal to us all. The computer viruses are often overlooked if the viruses do not disrupt the host computer immediately. But can you imagine that your computer has been online, collected, and remotely controlled? This is what the Clean PC Day activity explained. Those infected computers become part of what is called a botnet. They are banded together for malicious purpose. It seems that there is no direct damage to personal computers, but in fact, it is more dangerous than just a single virus.
There doesn't seem to be any impact on personal computers, but you have to realize that for botnets, DDoS attack is only one of the attacks. A botnet is actually a platform where different payloads, different attacks can actually happen.
Botnets are a serious problem to organizations that rely on the internet to operate their business. The most useful way is to avoid personal computers from being part of the botnets by keeping a clean personal computer. Floods that have killed at least 742 and left hundreds more missing continue to wreak havoc in China's southern Sichuan province and northwestern Shanxi province. According to state media, at least 35 million people have been affected by rains and heavy flooding, and over 1.2 million have been relocated, according to the government figures. Floods and landslides have killed dozens more people in recent days and forced the evacuation of a further 12,400 in western and central China. Flooding on the Yangtze River at the Three Gorges Dam reached its highest water level since 1987. And experts warn that further rains could cause it rise even higher. Heavy rain is expected to continue in central and southwest China in the coming days. Taiwan's biggest oil refinery complex catches fire for the third time in 6 months. No injuries and deaths were reported, but local residents demand safety inspections. The island's biggest oil refinery complex, for Mesa Petrochemical Corp facility in Taiwan, caught fire last night for the third time in half a year. Local residents watched the blaze and said they were too scared to live in the neighborhood of a petrochemical plant. The fire, affecting 1/3 of its production, continued to burn today, and workers were seen arriving at the plant for work. The situation had been brought under control with no reported injuries or deaths, and the company said it would investigate the cause of the fire and look for improvements. China wants to further strengthen its linkages with Southeast Asia. In a press conference held today, China's Vice Minister said both sides are benefiting from a closer cooperation. Cao Hu-ching said that with ASEAN countries have developed progressively, especially after the establishment of the China-ASEAN Free Trade Area in January this year, the investment has been boosted quickly. In the first half of this year, two-way trade between China and ASEAN reached more than $130 billion, a 5% increase year-on-year. The press conference was held ahead of the 7th China-ASEAN Expo to be held in Guangxi Autonomous Region in October. A UN-backed tribunal sentenced a senior member of the Khmer Rouge to 35 years in prison. It is the court's first verdict, 3 decades after the Maoist killing wheels revolution tore Cambodia apart.
Cambodian prison chief, best known by his alias Comrade Doik, stood in court as a UN-backed tribunal sentenced him to 35 years jail for war crimes committed during the Khmer Rouge regime and for the role he played in the deaths of at least 14,000 people. The 67-year-old was found guilty of murder, torture and crimes against humanity as chief torturer of the notorious S21 prison 3 decades ago. The judge said the 35-year sentence took into account the fact that Doik had expressed remorse and his potential for rehabilitation. The sentence was cut by a further 5 years to take into account time already spent in detention. During the hearings, Doik told the court he accepted responsibility for his actions, but said he was only carrying out orders from the regime that fell in 1979. It's the first verdict to be handed down to a top Khmer Rouge member since a quarter of Cambodia's population died during the period from starvation, disease, torture and execution. Witnesses and survivors of the Maoist regime arrived early in the morning to get a seat in court to hear the verdict, which was less than the 40 years sought by the prosecution, and of the life behind bars demanded by many Cambodians who've struggled to find closure for one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century. Kirsty Bassett, Reuters.
Witnesses and survivors of the brutal Khmer Rouge regime reacted to the sentencing of Comrade Doi. People who lost their families during the Khmer Rouge regime were not happy with the outcome. But prosecutors say this was a clear message for those who committed crimes against humanity.
Survivors of the Khmer Rouge regime sat under a tent outside a Phnom Penh courthouse to watch Comrade Doik being sentenced to 35 years in prison for his role in the deaths of at least 14,000 people more than 3 decades ago. The 67-year-old was found guilty of murder, torture and crimes against humanity as chief torturer of the notorious S21 prison. Some wiped away tears as they heard the sentence, which was less than the 40 years sought by the prosecution and a sentence of life behind bars that many Cambodians had demanded. With Doik to serve 19 years after time was deducted for years already spent in detention, many had mixed reactions to the sentence. One woman who lost her entire family during the Khmer Rouge era said it was not enough.
There is no justice for me.
Others were satisfied that Doik would spend a long time behind bars.
Even though he didn't receive a life sentence, he will be effectively in prison for the rest of his life. And so in that regard, it's acceptable because as long as it's not possible for him to walk the street as a free man, even for 1 hour, it's acceptable to me.
Prosecutors said the sentence sent a clear message that those who commit crimes can't avoid justice.
The most important thing is that judgment meets international standards of justice, and in light of that, in light of the sentence, as Andrew has said and Liang has said, we'll be reviewing the judgment, reviewing the findings of fact, and seeing whether or not there's been any errors made.
4 other members of the Khmer Rouge have been indicted by the court but have not yet been tried. Many Cambodians fear that those charged may never go to trial or possibly die before they see a courtroom. Kirsty Bassett, Reuters.
4 F-16 jet fighters refueled in mid-air on over the seas of the Korean Peninsula as part of joint military exercises between the United States and South Korea. The U.S. says the military exercises are defensive as Pyongyang vowed to launch a war against both countries.
After joint military drills between the United States and South Korea kicked off, 2 U.S. fighters have been shown to the media. The drills are taking place despite North Korea's Defense Commission vowing on Saturday to launch a sacred war against both countries in response. U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Jeff Remington described the $143 million aircraft, the Raptor, and explained the purpose of the joint military exercises.
Invincible spirit is defensive in nature and designed to dissuade and deter further provocations from North Korea.
China has objected to the drills, criticizing the introduction of large-scale military equipment to the Yellow Sea at a time of regional tension, instead calling for the bulk of the exercises to be staged off another coast. But the U.S. military says the drills were intended for North Korea, not China.
I do not know how China will interpret the message. And the message is not intended for China. Specifically, the message is intended for North Korea.
On top of the military drills, the United States also announced new sanctions on the North last week, including freezing the assets of Pyongyang's leaders. Tensions have been on the rise on the Korean peninsula since South Korea accused the North of firing a torpedo at one of its warships, killing 46 South Korean sailors, a charge that Pyongyang denies. Kirsty Bassett, Reuters.
In Afghanistan, K9 soldiers are helping U.S. troops to sniff out deadly explosives. They are also serving as a moral booster in the troubled Kandahar province.
Dogs of war. Military working dogs are on the front lines in Afghanistan. A team of bomb-sniffing dogs have been deployed to the volatile Arghandab district, an area that is seeing some of the fiercest fighting in the war-devastated country. Specialist Jacob Evans and his off-leash explosive detection dog, 6-year-old Sergeant Muddy, were assigned to reinforce Combat Outpost Nolan, a small mud-walled compound in the middle of fields providing cover for insurgents. Nolan has experienced some of the most intense fighting in the district. The 22-year-old specialist Evans arrived at Nolan to help clear a ring of improvised explosive devices. Evans was aware of the dangers.
So far, from what I've seen, the units are pretty good about taking care of us. We're usually under their overwatch as far as their weapon systems go and things like that, so I'm really not worried about it. Like I said, my dog and I have been together for 4 years, so he and I kind of have that trust and that bond that I got his back and he's got mine.
Muddy, who is trained to detect more than 60 types of explosives, is also a morale booster.
Yeah, we're more of a morale thing sometimes as much as we are explosive detection. I mean, most guys back here have dogs back home, so it's nice to take the dog around and let them play with the dog and get their spirits up a little bit.
Muddy has been making daily appearances in Combat Outpost Nolan's courtyard, and that seems to mean a lot for the soldiers. First Lieutenant and 2nd Platoon Leader Christopher Babcock.
It's another force multiplier. Everyone's excited about it. Plus, an animal is, psychologically speaking, is very good for people's health. So, I mean, he's a chocolate lab. Everybody loves him. His name is Mud, or actually it's Muddy. He goes by Mud. And so he's a very, very passive dog, and he's good for every part of it.
While on a mine-clearing operation with Muddy, Specialist Evans stepped on a mine hidden in front of a gateway to a field that ripped into his legs. Sergeant Leon Richards.
While we were out there, one of our personnel happened to step on an IED very close in the nearby village. He was wounded, but he was okay. We were able to, the working dog wasn't hurt at all. We were able to get him out. More likely, I believe that he's going to have full recovery.
Specialist Evans was airlifted by helicopter to a medical facility on Kandahar Airfield for treatment for injuries on one foot and both legs. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
BP CEO Tony Hayward is expected to step down over his handling of the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Sources say he will be replaced with American Bob Dudley, current managing director of BP.
Decided Chief Executive Tony Hayward should step down over his handling of the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, and his departure could be announced in the coming days, sources close to the company told Reuters. BP's board will discuss the timing of Hayward's exit when it meets Monday to review BP's second quarter results ahead of their release on Tuesday. Hayward has come under pressure over his handling of the spill and some of his comments. He told a reporter he wanted his life back.
The first thing to say is we're sorry. We're sorry for the massive disruption it's caused to their lives. And, you know, there's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. You know, I'd like my life back.
When he was called before Congress, he said he wasn't involved in the decision-making.
I wasn't involved in any of the decision-making. It's clear that there was some discussion amongst the engineering team and an engineering judgment was taken.
It's clear to me that you don't want to answer our questions.
The London-based company could announce on Tuesday that Hayward will stand down in the months ahead after a handover period, according to sources. However, the company is also mulling whether to hold off on announcing Hayward's departure until the well, which has been sealed with a temporary cap, has been shut off for good. BP has lost 40% of its market capitalization since the BP Deepwater Horizon rig exploded on April 20th, killing 11 people. The oil spill has poured countless barrels of oil into the Gulf, creating one of the worst environmental disasters on record in the United States. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
The U.S. Treasury Secretary says that the economy is recovering from a severe recession. Timothy Geithner does not expect the United States to slip back into a downturn.
Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner said that the economy is recovering from a severe recession, and he does not expect it to slip back into a downturn.
The economy's now been growing for almost a year, a little more than a year. Private sector is creating jobs again. The economy is starting to heal again. You're seeing growth, manufacturing, private investment recover. Those are encouraging signs, but we're living still with a lot of challenge still because the scars of this crisis ran so deep. And I think most Americans understand it's going to take some time to heal this.
In an interview on NBC Television's Meet the Press, he said he does not foresee a double-dip recession.
I think the most likely thing is you see an economy that gradually strengthens over the next year or two. You see job growth start to come back again. Again, investments expanding, manufacturing is getting a little stronger, exports better. Those are very encouraging signs, but we got a long way to go still.
While growth has returned, the job market is still weak. Last week, the White House said the unemployment rate is expected to average 9.7% this year and 9% in 2011. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
Australia's quest to win the hosting rights for the 2022 FIFA World Cup became a little more real today. A delegation from the sports governing arrived in Sydney to assess the country's sustainability to stage such a tournament. The 6-strong FIFA delegation was greeted at the Sydney Opera House by the chairman of the Football Federation of Australia and the Sports Minister for New South Wales. Laurie and Alice shook hands with each of the delegates, including the man leading FIFA's inspection, Chile's Football Federation President. Harold May Nichols said the delegation is in Australia to learn about the country's bidding book and about abilities to host big events. Inspectors will submit a report to FIFA's executive members, and the host of 2022 World Cup will be announced on December 2nd, 2010 in Zurich. Back in Southeast Asia, Thai Buddhists across the country observe the Asarna Puja Day. It is one of the most important days in Buddhism. The Asarna Puja festival marks the day the Lord Buddha gave the first sermon to his first 5 disciples. Monks and high-ranking officials attended a procession of giant candles to 9 prominent temples in the capital city. Donating candles to temples is the main highlight of the Buddhist celebrations, as candles are a necessity for Buddhist monks during the Lent. Processions were held across the country. In a town bordering Malaysia, Thai and Malaysian Buddhists participated in a merit-making ceremony in the town's market as a tribute for those who lost their lives in the militant-torn southern Thailand. Before we go, here's the weather forecast for tomorrow. It will be mainly cloudy with light to moderate gusty winds and thunder at times. The temperature will range from a minimum of 24 to a maximum of 29 degrees Celsius. These were the news. Have a good night.